And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I get to play a lot of Memoir 44 these days. I work with several American soldiers on the military post, and they're constantly wanting to play Memoir. We keep bringing it back, running tournaments, and it's a lot of fun. And I was really eager about the new expansion that Days of Wonder just released, which is Tigers in the Snow and Operation Market Garden. Both those scenarios are fascinating, and we're going to explore those for a bit. But what those scenarios brought out is the new unit, the Tiger Tank. 6 of these are included with the scenario. For me, that's good enough to buy it alone for that, but let's look at these tanks and see what they do. Okay, here is Ye Tiger Tank. All right, the Tiger Tank is added. Obviously, it's for the German side. I'm not sure why they put it in the light gray like they're doing with the other neutral units. I mean, maybe they'll, I don't know what the purpose is other than to distinguish it from the regular German tank, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. There's the regular German tank. It's pretty obvious. And while regular German tanks get together in groups of 3, Tiger tanks go by themselves, which means one hit and a Tiger tank is destroyed, which sounds bad, but it really is not. When you're attacking regular tanks, you roll the dice, and anytime you roll a tank or a grenade, that's a hit. 3 hits, they're dead. Let's say I roll a tank and grenade on this Tiger tank when I'm attacking it. He is not dead yet. Those are 2 hits that I must now re-roll. And if I get a grenade on either of the re-rolled dice, then he's dead. So basically, to kill a Tiger tank, you have to hit them, and then you have to hit them again, but the second time with a grenade. So your first chance of hitting is 1 out of 3. Your second chance is 1 out of 6. So with every die, you have a 1 out of 18th chance of killing the Tiger tank. It's not very high, and Tiger tanks will do a lot of damage, causing the Allied tanks to run in fear from them. Okay, here's the Tigers in the Snow half of the Overlord expansion, and as you can see, there is a lot of units involved in this one. It's on a snowboard, which is cool, and it's also against the Russians and Germans. Look at all those Russians tanks. There is just tons of those. And what's interesting about the scenario is that they're all on one side of the board, and they're against, some token infantry, and the German tanks with 4 Tiger tanks leading the way are on the opposite corner. And so it's interesting to see how players are going to, are they going to take tanks up against infantry, or are they going to work together to send their tanks to the diagonal other board and engage the other tanks? How players use their tanks in this scenario is probably going to determine the victory for it. It's really neat. There's a lot of tanks, and I think I enjoy it just for that reason alone. I mean, the tanks aren't doing so well because all the infantry of the opponents are in very good defensive positions, but they can still move and attack and just get around the board. So this is a great one for new players. This is the Market Garden one, and this one is really intriguing. I like the fact that it uses the British and the American forces, and just as a side note, you do not need extra British forces for this. It uses pretty much everything from that expansion, and I guess you could use American forces too. But there is a lot of British forces really just pushing up against the Germans. In fact, when we look at the German forces themselves, we're not really seeing a huge defense here. It looks like it's a big push for the Allies, but what's really important is that there are some units behind the Allied forces. There you can see 2 infantry units right here. Over here, there's a Tiger tank and 2 more infantry units, because these American Allied forces are paratroopers. And so this is going to be a really, really bloody battle with just the forces just in combat pretty much at the beginning of the scenario. You see all kinds of people dying from this one, and how the German uses those forces that are in the back, and how the British decide to use this big clump of soldiers on the side is really going to change how the scenario plays. I like the fact that there's also 2 regular scenarios included for 2 players, both of them using the Tiger tanks. Here we have 5 Tiger tanks against a huge Allied force. That's it. And it's pretty fair, I'll tell you that. We see all these Allied tanks here, but those Tiger tanks are sitting in the trees, and they can just blow away. And one of the Tiger tanks is like a super tank. He's has a special German officer in it who's a tank tank ace, and basically he's in this scenario too. This is probably my favorite of these two scenarios, only because there's more German forces on both sides. But again, you get to use the Tiger tanks. You see that the Allies have a much bigger force, but they're in a heap of trouble because they're going up against Tiger tanks. Both these scenarios seem very fair and balanced, this one more so than the other one. I'm really impressed with all those different scenarios. Those first two, the Market Garden and the Tigers in Snow. The Tiger Snow is just immensely fun to play because of all the tanks involved. And the second one is it gives me the same feeling that I got when I used to play Warhammer 40k with the Meat Grinder scenario. Just tons of gritty, intense battle on the board. And so both of those are a lot of fun. So I would get it just so I could use these Tiger tanks. And now the new Memoir 44 scenario creators out there, I'm looking forward to see people using these and making different scenarios, utilizing the Tiger tanks. A lot of fun. But just for this set alone, that would be worth it. To get these and those two Overlord expansions are absolutely fantastic. So if you like Memoir 44, it's a no-brainer. I think you're watching this just so you know what it's about, because you probably already have pre-ordered it anyway, but you should. Their best scenario to date.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.